Welcome back to Parenting Unplugged. Today we're talking about creativity and how something that's oftentimes seen as just for fun can actually be a powerful way to connect with your child or teen. Whether it's through play, art, or just doing something creative, these kinds of activities can help open up communication, build trust, and strengthen your relationship. Joining us is Elizabeth Hill, manager of Rehab Services, the Creative Arts Outpatient Program, and our outpatient location in Hinsdale. This is a board certified art therapist and licensed clinical professional counselor. She's here to walk us through how creative expression can help parents and kids connect in meaningful ways. Let's get started. Why did you want to focus on creativity as a parenting tool? What's important about this topic?
Yeah, creativity is often seen as like a fun thing to do, right? Or an activity that we do when we have time or for fun with our family. But it's also often not really thought of as a tool to help in a lot of ways. And creativity is a very powerful tool. So, really, it can help support a relationship in many ways and help our children and adolescents grow in many ways. It really helps foster communication, brings a more dynamic, supportive, and fun way to address topics, to grow together, to learn about one another. It promotes mutual respect from one another. And then, even with our kids, our younger kids, using creative activities helps us to explore a lot of things and help them grow in a lot of ways. For our adolescents, it can really help break down communication barriers that sometimes are pretty common in the parent adolescent relationship and create opportunities for meaningful conversations. Sometimes there's conflict, sometimes there's misunderstanding that happens between an adult and adolescent relationship. And using these creative avenues is a little bit less of an intimidating or hard way to start fostering that relationship building.
How does the dynamic shift when communication happens through creative activity instead of direct conversation?
I think that's a great question. For our younger kids, what you can tend to see happen when you're incorporating creative activity is you're able to really start building core memories with your kids. You're able to start communicating things that are important in the family dynamic, like values and things that relate to rules and relate to the world around them and social situations through activities. So where when you have a younger kid and you're trying to help them understand things like manners, or help them understand things like family dynamics or different values, you can have those conversations, but then actually using play and using creativity will allow them to engage and feel that and practice that, like, taking turns in games and complementing artwork and also fostering some internal growth through being able to recognize their own strengths or things that they're proud of. And then for our adolescents, we tend to see communication gets really hard when with a lot of adults and adolescents because this is their time where they're trying to figure out themselves as individuals and tend to push away from authority figures. And so being able to incorporate creativity and things that are interests of the adolescent as well as the parent helps to bring like a common ground to start having communication rather than focusing on topics where sometimes it just feels like we're in two different worlds or two different books trying to have a conversation.
Before we talk about what helps, let's talk about what challenges tend to affect the parent child relationship. What are you seeing?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can definitely impact the parent child relationship. So, just if you think about communication in general, some parents or their children may struggle to express themselves clearly, which can lead to misunderstandings and not fully grasping what each person is trying to say or where they're coming from. Often we see difficulties when it comes to generation gaps. So, difference in values and language and technology that we use can create barriers. Sometimes parents struggle to understand their child's perspective, especially with different like influences of modern culture and social media or different peer pressures that children are experiencing. We see a lot of difficulties and barriers with the relationship when it comes to technology and social media. So we know that this is a hard thing that we're adjusting to, and some parents grew up in the world of little to, little technology and trying to figure out kind of that difficulty and how to communicate together. Excessive use of technology can sometimes impact quality family time. It can strain relationships. It can lead to communication breakdowns. And we also know that social media can sometimes affect certain things with our kids, such as self esteem, body image, mental health. So, trying to, parents at times may struggle to understand those pressures that children face online because their experiences through technology and social media are different than adults' experiences. Other things that we see a lot that come up into play are emotional and mental health issues. Parents are sometimes dealing with their own mental health issues and trying to figure out how to maintain a healthy relationship with their child at the same time. And similarly, we see children and adolescents experiencing mental health challenges such as anxiety or depression and having difficulty connecting with their parents.
So, with all those stressors, how does creativity actually help build the relationship?
I think there's so many ways that creativity and engaging in creativity together can help build a relationship. I could probably go on about this for a long time. I mean, as we talk about those barriers, like those gaps in communications, those misunderstandings, even like those generational gaps and stressors that we're experiencing, being able to connect in a way together that is a little bit less stress inducing. So, right away, kind of taking off tense topics, taking off stressful feelings, taking off the table being, you know, tired or not understanding each other or having different viewpoints and just creating in a way where you're able to engage and connect through something that's a shared activity that you enjoy. Being able to do that helps a lot of ways. It can help really build trust in a way that's not really noticed at first because you're building trust through trusting each other through the activity, through creating, through building, through making things together, helping to foster empathy and emotional connection. So you can really get to understand each other in different ways and empathize with each other's experiences. I think I said this earlier, but building core memories, sharing memories and sharing moments together are really huge in adolescent and child development and having those positive, connected core memories that they will take with them. There's a lot of problem solving that comes into play when you're doing creative activities together. And that really helps not only the child and adolescent build those problem solving skills, but also as a parent to get creative in problem solving. And then as a family dynamic to figure out how do we problem solve together and how do we use each other's strengths. So you're able to do that in a playful, fun way. Another thing that creativity really does is build resilience. When you're able to practice failure. You're able to practice things not happening right the way you would expect them to happen or having to try again or get creative in different ways. That really helps like internally build that resilience with us as individuals, with our kids, and as that family dynamic.
What are some creative ways parents can engage with younger children?
So, my suggestion would be to first explore what are your creative interests as you're thinking about some of these things? And then also, what are your kids' creative interests? So, when you're able to kind of start on a plane, like an even playing ground of, hey, I noticed that my kid really likes coloring, or I noticed that they like video games, or I noticed they really like baking, or things like that, that you could then lean into that and create together. Creativity can take on so many shapes and forms. So, it can look like doing art together, it can look like participating in a game together. It can look like baking or cooking, trying a new recipe together. Getting outside in the outdoors and being creative outside, DIY projects or nature hikes and doing like a nature scavenger hunt, doing things together that you're exploring the world or getting creative. There's a lot of different games out there that people do. There's different like interactive games, collaborative games, creative games out there. And then also as you're like leaning into what your kid likes, try to get creative yourself. Like, how can we do this in a fun way, that connects us? So, creating a family video or a big one that I see being a nice one for families to connect on different levels is creating like a family tree. So, whether that's looking at photos and doing a photo family tree or writing down the names or creating a collage where you're actually talking about the family and sharing stories about the family and seeing how people are connected in different ways. And I would also say some of these activities may look different for a younger kid versus an adolescent, right? So with an adolescent, some of your goals might be different to kind of break down some of those barriers and build that trust and communication. And adolescents are starting to figure out who they are. So a lot of times with our adolescents, we'll get language and terminology that as adults we don't understand, or ideas or activities that as adults we don't engage in or understand. So it does require us as adults to let go of what we think is fun or interesting or productive and really engage in what they like and kind of step into their footsteps. So if they're really on their phones a lot or if they're on their video games, then figure out how to do that together creatively. Figure out how to do like creating a playlist of music together or, playing video games together or doing some joint journaling. A lot of adolescents will journal, and there's even journals out there that you could buy that are like a mother-daughter or parent-child or adolescent journal.
Do you have any ways that parents can bring this up in a natural way and not make it seem forced?
I think parents being willing to be open and flexible would be good. So, like I said earlier, pay attention to what your kids like, pay attention to what they're interested in, and then bring up ideas. Hey, like, what do you think about trying this? Or I'd really love us to do this together. And not putting so much pressure on it, not putting pressure on it needs to be done at this moment, at this time, or in this way, but also really opening it up for their kid or adolescent to have some say in how they want to get creative together and what interests them and when they think that would be a good time and letting them take the lead in some of those ideas and going with that flow would be a really great start.
And if the relationship is strained or these ideas don't seem to work right away, what would you say to parents?
I would say don't give up. And part of creativity isn't just engaging in that creative activity, but also being creative in introducing it and talking through it with your kiddo and ideas to try with the family. So, there's a lot of other resources out there too, especially if you're not somebody that engages in creativity on your own a lot. There might be things that you could suggest that you and your kid might be interested in, like taking an art class together or one of those like one couple hour painting classes, or even like considering doing some sort of if it is more for, like, relationship building or you're trying to solve some problems because this relationship is strained, maybe consider reaching out to seeing a family expressive therapist. There are, family counseling, but there's also family counseling with licensed and trained expressive therapists that can also bring in and incorporate these activities and help foster and build that relationship together. So there are some resources out there. One of the biggest goals is the biggest thing to remember is that the goal isn't to fix everything with one project. It's really just to try to introduce new ways to connect with your child and with your adolescent so that that relationship naturally starts to build.
Are there any resources you recommend for parents who want to explore this more or get some guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of things out there, and sometimes when we're looking for resources, it can look a little overwhelming, but if you go on the internet, if you look at some of the normal things like Google or Amazon, there are a lot of books that are already out there and things for parents that have been really helpful for people. One of them is The Creative Family by Amanda Blake Soul. There's a few different ones out there, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. That one is it's not creative base, but there's a lot of creative things in there. Playful Parenting by Lawrence Cohen. So there's a lot of different books that you can look for. There's also some cool things on the internet that you can play around with. There's The Artful Parent, it's a website. There's a creative writing platform called Storyboard where you're able to kind of play around with some of those kind of like journaling and creative writing ideas and storytelling with you and your kid. There's a site called the Creativity Toolkit by the Parenting Junkie. So there's a lot of things out there that you can explore and look at and just kind of gain some resources. I would also say if you're looking for more expressive therapy support through individual or family counseling, there's a lot of associations out there where you can find out who's licensed and trained in your area. So think such as the American Art Therapy Association, there's the International Expressive Arts Therapy Association, and more that you can look into, and they always have a list of their licensed expressive therapists in the area that you could reach out to. I think the big thing with resources, so there's always things out there. So look, educate. If you need ideas, seek them out. Look for people that maybe are creative souls that you already see talking to teachers or people in your life that you know. But a big thing is we have a lot of resources on hand that maybe we don't always realize we have. So getting creative with your kid can be a very simple thing in as much as like pulling together some materials that you have, engaging them in an activity that you see that they like or that you like. So start simple and start small and just see how that dynamic goes and what you want to add to that. So we have resources at our fingertips that we don't always realize.
Small, creative moments can go a long way in building trust, communication, and joy in the parent child relationship. Liz, thanks so much for sharing your insights and ideas today. For more information, visit ehealth.org/parentingunplugged. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next month.